Thank you very much for the invitation in here. And when I started to study Kabbalah at the university in 1971, who knew that there is a book named the Zohar, and that's an author, Rabbi Moshe de Leon. Everything was clear. Today, if you teach at the Hebrew University, there's no book and no author. I would like to describe to you what happened in scholarship. The book of the Zohar was a book written in Spain. On this issue, there is, for the time being, no disagreement among scholars. So that is part and parcel of the intellectual activity of mostly Spanish Jews. That all the scholars would agree, the Kabbalists, none of them would agree. I am speaking now as a scholar. For sure, Kabbalists believe that it's an ancient book written by Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai and venerated, and up to today you can see what's going on in pilgrimage to the author of the Zohar in Meron, which is another story, which I don't intend to argue with them. That's a matter of belief. Whoever believes in it, I have no problem with it. I am speaking from more from the academic point of view. What can be checked, demonstrated, understood historically, and not beliefs, which are part and parcel of religion, like many other beliefs. It's very hard to prove. So, what happened in scholarship is that when the study of Kabbalah started in an academic way, in a critical way, in Germany in around 1850, the first real scholar of Kabbalah was someone who never heard the name, someone named Meyer Landauer, who died very, very young. But he studied manuscripts and he came with some theory, which he didn't publish. He died, but afterwards it was published. The book of the Zohar was written by Rabbi Abraham Abulafia. So that's the first scholarly attempt to see who wrote the Zohar, not in the way in which the Kabbalists believe, but in a much more critical way. He was a scholar. It's a pity that's not true, but it took only 2 or 3 years when another scholar, who was a rabbi, but he was a very, very fine scholar, named Aaron Jelinek, who wrote a small book named Moses de Leon and the Zohar. That is one of the most important research on the Zohar. He doesn't write too much. He is copying texts of the Zohar, texts of Moshe de Leon, parallel, small book of parallels, showing that it's impossible that Abulafia wrote the Zohar. On this part, he is certainly true. If Moshe de Leon wrote the Zohar, that's a little bit more complex and we will discuss. But what he did is one of the most important masterpieces of scholarship of Kabbalah. You cannot debate it. The parallels are so long and so many that people believe that here we have the author of the Zohar, a Kabbalist, not very well now, among the Kabbalists, Moses de Leon, and the parallels are very, very fascinating. So scholarship went in this direction. The most important Jewish historian ever, highly regrets, I'm sure there must be also some Spanish translation, the history of the Jews, he accepted it. And he worked in this direction. He wrote about Moses de Leon and the Zohar, which became part of the most important history of the Jewish people. So many people read it, and that became unanimously accepted. Very few people disagreed a little bit, but that is nothing. Meaning it was accepted from 1852-3, and then in Jerusalem, that we know who the author is. We have other books of Moshe Zilio. We can compare them. And the feeling among the scholars was that that's a final proof that Moses Zilio wrote the Zohar. Slowly, doubt started, and that I'm going to speak about it. First doubt, the conference given by a colleague of mine, the most important scholar of the Zohar ever, Professor Idel gave a lecture in 1979, saying it's not so evident Sholem was alive. I remember Sholem listening to this lecture, which was a little bit surprising, but also Yuda didn't know what was going to happen in scholarship. And then, with the time, he started to find different views found in the book of the Zohar, which can be traced to other Kabbalists than Moshe Leon. So Moshe Leon couldn't be the author of everything, because some ideas contradict Moshe Leon. So slowly, he started to think about maybe there was a group in which Moshe Leon was there, but there were also other Kabbalists. And they had some seminars, and someone edited it, and then we have the book of the Zohar, which means the concept of a companion, meaning that it's not a single man. Moses de Leon was there, true, but he was not alone. And how important he was, it was difficult by then, 85, 6, 7, when he started to research more, difficult to see how central he was. Now, scholarship of the Zohar started basically in a very accelerated way, the second part of the 80s, when many other Kabbalists who wrote in this period were studied for the first time. And then it became a little bit evident that, yes, there are ideas which are not Moshe Leon, can be found in the other Kabbalists, found in the book of the Zohar. The book of the Zohar, given the fact that it's a Jewish book, there are controversies. So are different voices. So if there are different voices, maybe there was a group in which Kabbalists discussed. That group was here around, not in Madrid, but maybe Toledo, maybe Guadalajara, maybe Avila, no one knows even now. But slowly the idea became that is not exactly one book. That is a literature, that's why it's called the literature. So the author started to vanish. But also the book started to vanish. Why? Because it became evident that's not one book. There are different layers, compositions, treatises. It cannot be written by the same person. So slowly, we don't have a book. We have treatises, which became a book. How did they become a book? In a moment I shall describe. But that's a late and artificial issue. Up to this moment, no one found a manuscript in which the book the Zohar is found. Not one manuscript. There are some 700 manuscripts. In each of them, a small part here, there, no complete manuscript of the book of the Zohar was found, and by now all the manuscripts were analyzed. So how this became a book? It's very simple. In the period of the Renaissance, when people started to print, the book of the Zohar was not printed at the beginning. It was conceived to be a secret story. The Jews didn't want to print it. But the market was, how to put it, demanding. And the problem is that we don't have a manuscript, because there is no one manuscript. So, printers in Italy sent Kabbalists or people who would buy books, and they bought a lot of manuscripts from the Ottoman Empire, where the Spanish Jews lived. They came up with many manuscripts, and then the printers decided we put it, this treatise here, this treatise there, this part here, this part there, separating from time to time one composition and printing it in different places of the Zohar, and that became standard. Also scholars started to believe that this book is a book. We analyze this book because there was once this book existed, despite the fact that it didn't exist. It doesn't exist until now in a manuscript. It's only the composition of printers. And they are saying, look, we received different manuscripts, we decided to print this treatise before that treatise, which is 1558. It's very late, I didn't know what happened in Castile 300 years ago. So, slowly we started to see that not only that we don't have an author, we don't have a book. Now, this illusion of the book is very, very powerful up to today in scholarship. I don't speak about the Kabbalists. Entre nous, I can tell you the Kabbalists don't study the Zohar too much. I attempted to speak with as many Kabbalists as I could. Many of them a specialist in the Zohar. They believe in the Zohar, it's true, but they are studying late forms of Kabbalah, they are studying Luriani Kabbalah, Cordovero, Ramchal, whatever, but not the Zohar. The Zohar is too difficult. So, if you speak with the Kabbalists, you say for sure, Shimon Bar Yochai wrote it, and for sure, in the library here. But if you look to the library, you see that the book remains new, it's not used. So the Kabbalists don't study too much, despite the fact that they venerate it. Scholars started slowly to see that this book, which is something like five volumes, is a late compilation from manuscripts of different provinces, Italian manuscripts and Spanish manuscripts, Byzantine manuscripts. I mean, those manuscripts were a matter of accident. What those guys could buy in their tour in the East, there was nothing scientific there. So slowly we see that in fact we don't have a book. So the problem is now, how do you study it? So now, slowly, instead of studying the book of the Zohar, scholars started to analyze treatises in the Zohar, as if they are separate. So people wrote in PhD on one treatise in the Zohar, critical edition, not critical edition, but the analysis is now concentrated on one, and now they are specialists on some few pages in the Zohar, and there are many of them. And from time to time, people compare, but now the advance in scholarship means a regression in the organic structure of the Zohar. People who don't know how the Zohar started. In print, it's very simple. They took the first portion or pericope, but who knows who wrote it? Maybe it was written later. So now we entered a situation in which, given the fact there are many scholars, and it became obvious that we cannot create some form of system which when I started to study, people were speaking about the system or the title of books. The most important book written by one of the senior scholars, is called in Hebrew, not in English. The Mishnah of the Zohar, meaning the thought of the Zohar. It was obvious, it's something like that. Now, actually, we don't know. We can understand a little bit better, separate what it is. And that is, in my opinion, a great advance. That at least a very deep analysis, which doesn't attempt to put this, what is written on one page or what is written 200 pages later. But we have at least an organic unit, which is small, but can be studied by reading the manuscripts. Attempting to compare the topics here with the topics of other Kabbalists. So we enter here in a situation that the book disappeared, the author disappeared. For sure there were authors, we don't know even how to write today. If you write the author of the Zohar, you are accused that you are traditional. So every time what's in the authors of the Zohar. So we don't have an author, we don't have a book. So what do we have? In a way, there is a Jewish American writer that I admire very much, who wrote a book which I strongly recommend it, named in English The Book of Illusions. Wonderful book. What Jews in America. So we don't have even the illusion of Moshe. We don't have the illusion of the book of the Zohar. So we started now, we, the scholars, started now to speak about not one group, but more than one group, because one group doesn't solve too much. So slowly, scholars started to speak about groups of Kabbalists who wrote different parts. They were not exactly contemporaneous. Maybe there is something like one or two, maybe 3 generations, maybe more, I shall speak about it in a moment, that produced the literature. So instead of a book, we have now a literature. I'm going to describe. Instead of an author, we have groups. So how many groups are? For the time being, there's no agreement among scholars. That's an issue which are developing in the last 10 years. Big books written only on those issues. That maybe started in 1270, but maybe it continued up to printing in the 16th century. It's something, there are scholars who believe, but there was something before, something modest before. In a while, I hope, 2 or 3 months, big book. The student of mine is going to be published, and she claimed that she found pages which should be dated 100 years before. So, in a moment we have something like a literature, we have several names, but also anonymous names. And the game is becoming more and more complex. So, that is the situation we are now. We know now more, but we understand less how this book emerged. It is obvious among scholars that that is written in Castile. Even people who are saying maybe there's 1 or 2 generations later is related to Castile, because we don't have manuscripts or knowledge of the Zohar in Catalonia. For sure we don't have in Andalus. Andalusian Jews were not interested in the Zohar, they were more rationalists. So the numbers of the manuscripts and the authors we know, all of them are in a way or another related to Castile. But the book is written as if it was authored more than 1,000 years before. I mean, it's not a book of history. At the same time, to give you an example, we have another classic written in Europe, exactly the same, the Dante Alighieri's Commedia Divina. There you have a big book, but you see history, you can see the history. Historical names and what they did, and they are in the paradise, they are in hell, they are here, but you understand the history by reading Divina Commedia. The book of the Zohar erased history. Everything happened in a cave, not far away from Safed. Some people were discussing there. Who are they? We know the names, but we know the names from the Mishnah and Talmud. We cannot identify them with any Kabbalist. So, which despite the fact that it reflects, as I shall discuss in a moment, what happened in Castile, it's not an historical book about Castile, or about the Kabbalists of Castile. For example, we don't know who is the historical figure that is represented by Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. We have no idea. It's not Moshe Leon. It doesn't work. So, what is interesting, the book is creating the illusion of an ancient wisdom standing from a cave and unknown for a millennium, because no one quoted the Zohar for 1 millennium, and out of the blue it emerged. That is a big illusion. And that illusion created the sacred understanding of the Zohar. It is not a medieval stuff. It's not the Kabbalah people are dealing with here. That is the source of Kabbalah. That before everything was kept esoteric, and now it's surfaced. So, the book, despite the fact we can see the history by our tools, who is quoting the Zohar, for example, what see? We can see, but we don't know who are the various authors of the various parts of the Zohar. And that created the aura of holiness, which in a moment I shall describe how strong it is. The Kabbalists assume that is not a Spanish book. That is a book written by Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. So, the most important achievement, if you like, of Spanish Jewry was portrayed by Spanish Kabbalists as not Spanish. And that saved the book among the Kabbalists. There was this illusion of being written in a cave. I shall return to this cave in a moment. Written in a cave by a very, very important figure, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, running secretly for a millennium without anyone knowing. That's very romantic. And that created, in fact, a veneration of the book of the Zohar. I shall make an interlude to show you how strong it is. That changed the history of today's. Not the book of the Zohar, but the fact that people believe that the book of the Zohar was written in Meron. I don't think about what's going on today. 200,000, 300,000, 400,000 Jews are going there. That's obvious. People go there because the author of the Zohar is there. That is very obvious. Without it, there was no chance to have any pilgrimage to Meron. But long before, after the expulsion from Spain, many Spanish Kabbalists went to Safed, not to Jerusalem. But what happens? Why do they go to Safed? Safed was not so important. So many Kabbalists are going more to Safed than going to Jerusalem. Not to speak about Tiberias or Hebron. So the solution is very simple. The book was canonized in Spain. They believed that the author doesn't die in the grave, but we can communicate. And if you are a serious Kabbalist, you must study the book near the tomb of the author. And eventually you can ask him some questions. Because the book is very difficult. So the best way is to go and to study there, maybe to study with the author. I mean, here we have a vision which created the center of the Kabbalist and subject, no less. Which means not only that they went there and studied there, they wrote huge books commenting on the Zohar. What's meaning huge book? Huge books that you hard to describe. One of them alone, only one, in Safed, wrote 30 big volumes. One alone, who died very early in his life, wrote 30 volumes, big volumes, that it took a lot of years to publish them. Everything is published. 30 volumes, one commentary. Because there are many commentaries. But the first is by Moshe that shows, in fact, he came there and he remains there because of the book of the Zohar. And that's also the case with Rabbi Yitzchak Luria and their students, meaning the center of Kabbalah in Safed is built on the imagination that the book was written there, and that is the best place to contact the author. And the Safedian Kabbalah, in fact in the plural, emerged because of the assumption that the book is not Spanish, but Galilean. You can ask how powerful something like that can be, so it's very powerful. I mean, the fact that we have several commentaries written in 30 years by people who knew each other, and nevertheless they wanted to write a commentary of their own, which cost a lot of time to write and to publish. That remained, in fact, a major factor of creativity. We can ask, so if someone wrote such a commentary on the Zohar, so maybe it's final. What can someone add after such a book? So their conception was different than ours. Their conception was the book of the Zohar, like the Torah, it's a divine book, which has many, many meanings, and the meaning change all the time. And the fact that my father wrote a commentary on the book doesn't mean there is no other meaning that I can write, and so on. So, for example, we have, it's not theoretical at all, we have 3 commentaries on the book of the Zohar, written in Hungary, Poland. Someone wrote 5 volumes, published 5 volumes. His son came and wrote also 5 volumes. And their uncle also wrote, in one family, in a poor place. To publish, that's a lot of money. So why? Because the assumption is that it's like the Torah. It has more than one meaning, and this meaning is changing all the time. Because the meaning of a text reflects the constellation of the 10th period. This constellation is dynamic. So the meaning of a text once is not the meaning of a text today, and that's not going to be the meaning of a text tomorrow. So that is canonization. The book was canonized and reached the status of the Torah. Again, if you go to a yeshiva of Kabbalists, no one is reading there, not only the Zohar, no one is reading even the Torah. Because later interpretations of the Zohar became canonical also. And what's happening today, people are living from the radiation of the Zohar, from the imagination related to the Zohar, studying all the time in different ways, in different yeshivot, in the same street in Jerusalem. So that is the meaning of the canonization. What means canonization? It means for sure there's one author, for sure there's a system. We don't understand the disagreement, it's our problem. We must inquire more and write one more commentary in order to harmonize the book, because the book is for sure having one basic profound meaning. So that vision of a literature is not accepted by the Kabbalists. The Kabbalists believe that's a book and that's an author. As scholars, we are starting to deal with what is a literature. So this literature is part, and that I would like to repeat what I said several times in the classes. That's an incredible renaissance to write 5 big volumes in a short period of time, in a small place, like I assume today, that's incredible. Meaning someone must work day and night. He wrote it in a language that we didn't speak Aramaic, which is complicating everything even more. And a rather good Aramaic. So we still don't know what to do with it. So there was Ada, who was here, a scholar in England, created a group of research of the Aramaic of the book of the Zohar. Is it late? Is it early? It is, still we don't know. So what happened? We are now seeing different strata. I shall give you examples, but I cannot enter in detail because it's too complex and too long. The first stratum is a composition which is not so big, something like half a volume, named a Midrash Ne'elam, the secret Midrash. So you see here secrecy. That's not the Zohar that we know. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai not found there, not a very deep Kabbalah. It's an exercise to create a Midrash which is esoteric. This layer is not found in one book because the printers took the portion from Midrash Ne'elam on Genesis, they put it on Genesis, and on Ruth, they put it on Ruth. So you cannot read it, you must recreate this Midrash from manuscripts or putting together what's in print. Not to study the Midrash Ne'elam, because it's not printed as a book. That is relatively early, relatively close to Moshe Rabbeinu. Meaning Irenaeus was right. There are pages taken from Moshe Rabbeinu. And the style of Midrash Ne'elam, which is for the time being considered to be by scholars the earliest stratum, is a bit more philosophical, more midrashic. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai is a minor figure, not the author. And that is considered to be early. How early? People disagree. People would say, once were saying 1280. Now people moved a little bit, 1270. Other people wrote in books. Don't speak about someone writing a note. Wrote in full books, saying, no, that is before Nachmanides, which means 1250. But all of them see the intellectual culture of Castile. But that is the small part. The bigger part, what is called in scholarship, the body of the Zohar, the great part, the bulk of the Zohar, is written in Aramaic. Midrash Elam, half Aramaic, half Hebrew. You see the beginning of writing in Aramaic. The book of the Zohar, big part of the book of the Zohar, is written in Aramaic, and there it is in the cave. And that created the image of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai and the author of the Zohar. So, for a while, we believe that, okay, Midrash Elam is someone else, Moshe did their own, friend of him, a student of him, but we have the bulk of the Zohar, which is volumes. Slowly, it became obvious nothing more. This big part of the Zohar has other different treatises which couldn't be written by the people who wrote the bulk of the Zohar. For example, maybe the most complex part of the Zohar, what is called Hidra, Sifra de Tziyuta, would we believe this Moshe Leon? Yehuda Libes doesn't believe more. That is the most profound part of the Zohar. Very difficult. So now we say, yes, even in this bulk of the Zohar, there are parts which Moshe Leon is nothing. And then there is another part, as a big, a volume and a half, written by someone else, different from the book of the Zohar, what is called Tikkunei Zohar and written by another Kabbalist. You can see the style, you can see, that's totally different issue. So out of the blue, we have several Kabbalists that we don't know the name, hiding their name, not like Dante. Everyone knows Dante, he wrote about, no, here you don't know. Different people, hard to guess. And that is an enigma, how many people were here that could create such a literature. So we see that there are different layers. Everything apparently starting from 12, 60, 70 to certain 10, 20. Later on, there are additions. You say, yes, but the text study was actually, there are glosses, and later Kabbalists put their material, but how to put it? The Zohar was written in this period. So let me try now to make an exercise that I know is going to be a little bit difficult. If I'm going to ask you a question, people are saying that a very important book was written in a cave. And out of the cave it emerged. And there are many, many secrets there. It was written a millennium and a half, a millennium and a century before. That sounds something? You have some connotations? Well, I'm telling you, that is pure imagination. But that's what the Kabbalists are saying. It was written in a cave, preserved there, and after the blue it emerged after a millennium that no one knew. So what? Qumran. Oh, we have such a phenomenon. It's not terribly unknown. In fact, we have a phenomenon. And we have the manuscripts, the dated manuscripts, Qumran. if you read the literature of Qumran, you find there a lot secrets. That is a word which is running all the time. And the question is, how could Kabbalists in Castile predict what's going to happen in 1947, that books will emerge out of caves in Qumran? That's impossible. You agree that's impossible. So when I gave once a lecture in Safed to the archaeologists, and I brought them what's written in the Zohar, and I told them, hey, you have any connotation? No one wanted to speak, because they were afraid, because they were going to laugh. How can you say something like that? So what happened in Castile, that they attributed important books on secrets in a cave, and that emerged out of the cave, as if they read the newspapers in 1947. So that's not an enigma. It's very nice to present it as an enigma. But actually, the Qumran literature was not discovered in 47. Via centuries, Bedouin found texts and brought them out. He showed them to a variety of, depends on what century. Now we have testimonies about people who received texts in Hebrew, and saying, look, this is Hebrew, but not the Bible. So we have several testimonies. 9th century, 10th century, some of them earlier, but the later are more important. That the Bedouin were around also then. They were not born in 47. That in fact, this idea of secret books of the Jews came out of the cave. Can be shown that they existed in some circles, including Jewish circles, in, for example, 10th century, in Damascus. There was a bishop who was telling me, he brought me material. I read, that is true, it's Hebrew, it's very, very biblical, but it's not the Bible. And you can imagine, he was also surprised. So he started to ask Jews, what's going on? Also the Jews didn't know. But the story was known. The story of books emerging out of caves, which are secret, and they are ancient, and they are preserved, and it takes a lot of time to reconstruct them. This story was known by Kabbalists. I can show 100%. It was known by Kabbalists. One Kabbalist who was very interested in how the book was written, named Rabbi Yitzchak of Acre, he came from Acre to Castile to investigate how the manuscripts of the Zohar are found. He heard about it, and he is the first one to say, but that is a manuscript of a story I heard while I was in Acre, which showed that Kabbalists knew something similar. He didn't say that the Zohar or not, but he is testifying that it's true that books can appear after 1,000 years with secrets out of the cave. And that created this holiness of ancient books were preserved because the generation was not sufficiently righteous to read, etc. And like in the case of the Qumran literature, Kabbalists would say the book of the Zohar is not complete. There was much more, and they are saying much more. Cordovero, for example, who attempted to reconstruct the book of the Zohar, he made the first effort by a Kabbalist. I don't know printers in Italy. They were ignoramuses. For the Vero didn't have a book, they had only manuscripts. So he put together the manuscripts to create the text that he would interpret. And then he's writing, it's not complete. For sure it was much more, but it was lost. As we know from Qumran, for sure it was more. And so we have here some form of imagination, which was not invented in Castile, but it had an impact on the way in which the Castilian Kabbalists presented the Book of the Zohar. And that had a huge impact, as you can see today with the Qumran literature. Qumran literature is a matter of international news. I don't know how many of you have seen 2 days ago. Whole stories about one Qumran text, how it was preserved. That you can find on CNN, on Fox or whatever. So this romantic vision is very powerful even today. That's something which attracts attention. The Book of the Zohar created this type of romanticism. There were once holy people, they had revelations, they could write huge books. They were able to create a universe that we didn't know. They believed it is true. And that helped the generation after, meaning around 35, 10, it already radiated in Italy. You can see in Italy, few people, that's true, but that's enough, quoting the Book of the Zohar, the wonderful Book of the Zohar, the great Book of the Zohar. That created, in fact, for the Jews, a dimension of Judaism which they didn't know about. It was a big discovery. That, okay, the Bible is for sure saint. Talmud, not too many people study Talmud. Don't believe what people claim the Jews are the people of the book. It's a very nice theory, but how many people study Talmud? But we have also something much more, and that is the dimension which the Jews needed in order to give a sense of Judaism. Because what happens in the Zohar, that is a commentary on Judaism, which adds a dimension which is not found in them, and not found in the Bible, but claiming that that is the meaning of the Bible. And that was part of, in my opinion, an alternative to what happened in Castile. So what happened in Castile in this period with Alfonso Sabio, that's a renaissance. Alfonso Sabio had money, he brought manuscripts, they were translated, that created a certain effervescence. It's called the Renaissance of Alfonso Sabio. And entre nous, not a small part of the translators were Jewish, because they brought the manuscripts from Northern Africa, and they translated from Arabic. So Jews sitting in Toledo were speaking about the small, for sure you know how big Toledo is. And the Juderia was a little bit smaller. So you see that the translators, Jewish translators, are translating now from Arabic esoteric writings, astrology, magic, alchemy. And Jews create what they believe is a parallel mystical literature in the same places, in the same days, basically. So in a way, the emergence of Zoharic literature, and to a certain extent also of Kabbalah in Castile, is an attempt of the Jews to offer a Jewish Renaissance that competes to the Alphonsinian Renaissance. And that's not a nice theory, sociological theory. We're speaking about Toledo, the small Toledo, that people were seeing each other on the street, the translators and the Kabbalists. They were living in the same Udriya. So what happened with the book of the Zohar, especially the book of the Zohar, more than other books, was to recreate a certain form of Judaism, which is better than whatever is known, superior, deeper, that can compete to the effervescence created by Alfonso Sabio. So that's why that's a deeply Castilian story. It couldn't appear, according to such an explanation, in Catalonia. Catalonia was not too many, how to put it, translations. There was a very important guy, Ramon Llull, but he was not living so much in Catalonia. He was going around Northern Africa, Paris, Italy, he's moving all the time. He said the Jews didn't need, he was a little bit later, they didn't need to offer their counter-resistance. In Castile, the culture which emerged out of the blue in a very short period of time, which Alfonso Sabio, created by what I would call osmosis. Not that they took from there. It's an osmotic issue. We are living in a creative place. We create in our language, they create in their language. They offer a Castilian Renaissance, what Alfonso Sabio, he wanted to unify Spain, to have a Renaissance in Spain. The Kabbalists would say also we have our Renaissance. The book of the Zohar is pre-exilic, very important, a point very, very important. That is true Judaism, more important than the Talmud. That also a counterpart to the Talmud. It's written as if it's a midrash, but it is actually attempted to say that is the real Judaism before the Talmud. Because Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai was living before the Talmud. What the Kabbalists attempted to say by creating this book of the Zohar is something which still needs to be investigated. That is the Jewish culture before the controversies. Talmud emerged after Shimon Bar Yochai. And that Babylonian Talmud, Palestinian Talmud, there are differences there. There are a lot of discrepancies. But Shimon Bar Yochai is before. And he has a Judaism which is not based so much on the Talmudic mode of writing. That is also one of the reasons why Kabbalists choose to return to Safed. Because Safed was a place that's not far away, not exactly Safed, but in the vicinity of Safed. Many Tanaim, meaning those who wrote before the Talmud, were living. And the Kabbalists had the idea, we return to a place before the exile. We recreate an original Jewish type of understanding that is not based on all those debates. That's why I'm calling it by the term Renaissance. We bring back something which was once Jewish, but was distorted by the exile. And all these Talmudic disputes and halachic writings, which all those debates, are not so much a matter of what happened before the Talmud. And by going to the tombs of the Tanaim. That's what the Kabbalists are doing. Their feeling was that we return, that's an anti-exilic exercise. We shall create Safed, we shall create, as the Zohar created in Toledo, we shall create a literature which is not contaminated by the exilic experience. And that's what gave to the book of the Zohar the spatial status, which is, for the Kabbalists, bigger than the Talmud, for example. So the Talmud is a lot of discussions. And it can be decided, but nevertheless, the controversies remain. So, what happened in the lifetime of Alfonso Sabio immediately afterwards, or a generation afterwards, we cannot find any other place in Europe in which the cultural creativity was so strong and the Jews contributed to it also by translation. By translation was very, very important. That we can situate the Zoharic literature as a parallel phenomenon to the Alphonsine Renaissance. Now, Alfonso Sabio was interested also in Jewish mysticism, at least by the translation we have. So, an example, and with this, I shall give you an example to see how the relationship is very complex. Among the translations made for Alfonso Sabio is a translation of a book named in Latin Liber Razielis, the book of Raziel. If you read the book, you see there are two parts of it. One, rather Jewish, and we have a book named Sefer Raziel HaMalach. The second part of the book must be part of the Renaissance here, because it's a book of magic, with Arabic magic, that was very, very important in the Alphonsine Renaissance. So here we have one book in which you can see the contact between Jewish culture and the Renaissance of Alphonsine, found together in one book, done in the same period, apparently translated by a Jew, I assume. So those relationships are not a matter of temporal coincidence. It happened at the same time. It just happened. It didn't happen. It couldn't. Toledo cannot. Something like that cannot happen by chance. It is part of an exchange, a cultural exchange, which created, to a great extent, Jewish culture. Spanish culture, a little bit less, because what happened after Alfonso Sabio, not too much. Much more the image rather than the content. But those two developments should be seen together, in place, in time, but also from the point of view of the concept. There is a certain concept that you bring back something that you need, that's very important, that will create a new cultural life. And from this point of view, the Castilian Kabbalah differs from other forms of Kabbalah found in Catalonia or found in Provence, because of this accent of bringing back something lost that helps you to strengthen the Jewish culture. Other Kabbalists had other types of politics which are different from this form of politics. So, that is, in my opinion, the reason for the emergence of this literature. Despite the fact that Alfonso is not mentioned there, but you can find a lot of magic in the book of the Zohar. Striking we can find in the book of the Zohar also ancient material, which we don't know how arrives there, giving the feeling that we have ancient material. Maybe from the cave, you listen well, there. Sholem believed that everything was written in Spain. Old Sholem, a year before he died, he has seen an edition of a book, fragments from the caves, published by a Polish priest. He read it, it's in Aramaic. He wrote on his book of the Zohar that they had seen what was in the cave. Sholem, who didn't believe in it at all his life, in a certain moment had the feeling that, look, we have an Aramaic in the cave, something found in Aramaic in the book of the Zohar. So he was very skeptical in general and didn't work with this idea of the ancient Zohar. But maybe there was success after all. And slowly, an example is found here. Carlos wrote a PhD where he analyzes ancient book of Enoch and Zoharic texts without children. Meaning we are now in a situation that confusion. Once I remember while studying Kabbalah with my teacher, we said there's not one single word in the Zohar which was not written in the Middle Ages. Which was not written in the Middle Ages. Now, no one would dare to say something like that. Meaning, they had some form of information, not only the stories. There are books and caves and the merge, but maybe they had a little bit more. Now we are starting in this confusion to look how material emerged. That's not impossible. Meaning, scholars were blinded to assumption everything was created late by a book, a whole book, don't speak the text. A whole book was totally unknown to the Jews. For a millennium, emerged in Spain, in Aramaic, some 20 years before the Zohar. So we have the book, we have the quotations, it's 100% true, it cannot be denied. Text totally unknown. That's an esoteric text, named the Wisdom of Solomon, which was, we have it in Greek, but it's a Jewish book, translated to Hebrew, unknown to the Jews. And out of the blue, Nachmanides is saying, yes, I have a book, the Wisdom of Solomon. We quote it in Aramaic, 2 quotations found in the book. So there was something, this interest in esotericism, in magic, in astrology, in alchemy, which didn't exist in Europe elsewhere, together, in such a concentrated way. Even Jews took place, created the possibility that Jews would create also in Aramaic and Hebrew in a very intense manner that is not paralleled by any other period in the history of Kabbalah, with the exception of Sabbath. And that created, in fact, without the Zohar, Kabbalah wouldn't exist. All the other Kabbalists would be minor figures. Because the Kabbalah was established by the book of the Zohar. To be a Kabbalist means something. But without the Zohar, it wouldn't mean almost nothing. So, I attempt to give you a picture, which is a lot of obscurities. We don't know the names That's frustrating. But we have a lot of material, anonymous, written here. We can see relationship, and we don't have the name. There were groups, for sure there were groups, but they were clandestine, I don't know why. But nevertheless, they were capable to bring about the emergence of such a very important book, in my opinion, as a scholar, not as a Kabbalist, for the Jewish culture, and that's a unique contribution of Castilian culture to Judaism. So I hope that you have an idea, at least, about what's going on. I mean, there was no book, there was no author, there was an effervescence. And now to decode who exactly did and why, and Moshe was wrong. And I must say, the study of the book of the Zohar today in scholarship is high priority. Last year, to give an example, last year, 2019, 10 volumes were published on the book of the Zohar, scholarly alone, I don't speak about Kabbalists. 10 volumes, not books, volumes. And that's going to continue. That's a fascination among the scholars now, to attempt to solve the enigma. What happened? So now it becomes more and more difficult to study the Zohar because the literature is so huge. Meaning, to remember the different theories by my students even, very hard to remember. Someone publishing 700 pages, one book 700 pages this year. Next year, another book 700 pages. I know. That's one student. That is a flowering of scholarship because we entered this nebulous situation. Earlier, when we assumed that Moshe wrote, okay, so we know he wrote, make a comparison or not, but that is a solved problem. Now we are actually in this form of enigma. And scholars have the, how to put it, the instinct that maybe they can solve something, not everything. Everything, no one has the pretension. But at least we have now manuscripts, access to manuscripts, now more than ever. Other parallel Kabbalists are studied, so it's easier to see what happened in the same period in Castile. I think only about Castile, not about other parts. So on the one side, it's much easier. On the other side, the scholarly literature, believe me, 10 volumes on the book of the Zohar in 1 year. And that's not going to change. From what I know, that's going to continue. If ever we shall have a solution, when you invite me, I shall tell you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Idel. I just wanted to open the floor for questions.
There are a lot of other developments we didn't mention in the last years. I didn't summarize. I brought only some ideas. So some ideas are scholars claiming, look, actually, there's no treatise. What is in print? There is no two texts in the print which are similar. And there are scholars like Daniel Abrams saying, actually, you cannot rely on anything. You must study every edition in itself, not rely on any of them. So I didn't bring you all the developments. Some of them are creating, in fact, maybe paralyzing. We don't have the book at all. We cannot rely on print because this print is just one print, and another print maybe has a better version. And if you don't study manuscripts, you are out. So the situation today is so complex in scholarship in this field that we couldn't predict 20 years ago anything like that.
Entonces voy a abrir el turno de preguntas. Lo que sí pediría es que fueran preguntas muy concretas y sobre el tema que se está tratando y por favor cortas. Y ya que estoy hablando voy a intentar hacer yo la primera. So, two small things. You're an Erde published a book on the relationship between Qumran and the Karaites.
Who?
Joran Erde from Tel Aviv.
Okay.
So,
Not Kabbalah.
No, not Kabbalah, but it reminds me what you say, a new direction in research, mostly in Israel universities. What do we know about, after these texts were written, what do we know of what is happening in Castile? About the Jews of these texts in later Kabbalistic literature?
To complicate, one more complication. Our assumption is the Qumran set disappeared. There are texts, but everything disappeared. Which is today not accepted by scholars. Not only Yoram Erde, but also Naftali Idel. Some few years after the discovery of the Qumran literature, a scholar from Jerusalem came with the idea that the Karaites are the descendants of the Qumran sect. He wrote a book. And now, other books written by Yoram Erde, saying that in fact, those people didn't disappear. We have a sect in Judaism named the Karaites. Their halacha is similar to Qumran. There are even specific names found in Qumran literature and among the Karaites, like Mastema, for example. Yoram wrote an article on this. So, what I told you earlier, that's not just how an exercise. If they are right, and I believe they are right, Wieder and Yoram Erde, we have a conduit, an historical, actually, continuity between people living according to those spatial forms of Judaism and the Karaites, which were around, for sure.
They're still around.
In Spanish, they're still around, but then they were in Spain. So the whole story is really more complex. To give you another example. In 1220, 30, I don't know exactly, an Ashkenazi figure is claiming that the Karaites are writing books, putting them on earth, and then rediscovering it, not to show that they are ancient. But that is known, the Moshe Tapo, that is known in 1220, 1230, that ancient, what is considered to be ancient books, are rediscovered and arriving via Russia to Ashkenaz, for example. So, I will give you only some few examples. The whole story is much more complex. People in Castile knew some of them, maybe not all of them, but some of those issues were known. So that's not a conjecture which has no support but by some form of comparison. A scholarship of Kara, not all the scholars of Kara accept. That is true. But the books written on Karaites are written by scholars going in this direction. The Karaites are continuing the Qumran sect. That are at least two books. There are other scholars who don't believe in it. That is true. But I believe that Wieder and Elder, they are serious scholars. It's not just conjecture.
Questions?
Do you want me to use the microphone or it's fine? A lo mejor para que lo oiga el doctor. So you said almost at the end of your lesson that the objective of the Zohar was to bring back something that was needed,
Yeah.
and that creates a new culture. And I was wondering if that was one of the reasons why the Zohar is now more popular or more known than other types of Kabbalah that we have been studying.
There's no doubt that the book of the Zohar is today more known in popular culture. I myself had an experience here in Madrid. I don't remember when Shlomo Ben Ami was ambassador. We were in the house of Toledano. Someone knocked on the door and sold him the door that I've seen with my eyes in Madrid. Said you can see it in Broadway and everywhere. There's no doubt that the book of the Zohar became the quintessence of Kabbalah for people who don't understand anything. Because that became some form of amulet. From time to time, people are distributing 12, 30 volumes Zohar in English for nothing, distributed for nothing. And that is part of this aura of holiness. The people who cannot read, cannot open, they will never open. But they are keeping the 12 volumes, which is serious. Now, there's no doubt that, for example, there are entire projects related solely to the Zohar, academic. Some 2 years ago, 12 volumes of the English translation of the book of the Zohar were finished. Serious project. English translation with notes, with introduction, with... I'm not sure that the people who give the money, whom I know, will ever read it. But they give, I don't know, millions. By chance I know the lady who gave the money. I'm not sure that she's very intelligent, but it's something different. I think about projects now, whole projects, dealing solely with the book of the Zohar in academia, which was never from there. I don't speak about Israeli Academy giving money for those volumes of 700 pages. Again, 700 pages. That is long projects, still a lot of money. There's no doubt that in popular circles and in academic circles, that became the most prominent because in a way people believe that it's sacred even if they are scholars. There is something, an inertia. Now, other forms of Kabbalah were all the time less important and are also now less important. But nevertheless, if I take the example of Spain, yesterday we've seen a site on Abraham Abulaki in Spain. It's called a project. I don't know what project it is, but a university is supporting the project. Named Abraham Abulaki, not the Zohar. I don't know if it's good or bad to go to study at that university. But that's what I've seen yesterday. Yesterday night, I've seen another project. And believe me, I don't look for it. They're just, in a way or another, arrived with me. I don't look for it. We're speaking now about one day. Other forms of Kabbalah are becoming more powerful than the Zohar. Because the Zohar is basically a particularistic vision of Judaism. And people are looking now to non-denominational visions of Kabbalah. There is a guy that I discovered yesterday night, I didn't know, named Frank Arab. He has a site on non-denominational forms of Kabbalah, which means that a nice lady like Madonna can be also a Kabbalist without reading the book of the Zohar. And I'm sure she doesn't read the book of the Zohar. So slowly the picture started to change. That what is called non-denominational vision become more attractive. Because you don't have to know Aramaic, you make some exercise. This exercise works for everyone. So you are right, the book of the Zohar is still central. Nevertheless, if I'm right in what I see in the last 10 years, slowly, you see that people are looking for something different as well. You cannot understand, believe me. Even when translated in English, with all the very good notes of Daniel Matt, with the introduction, with whatever, very difficult to understand. But if you take a technique, how to combine letters, and you can do it on the spot. It happened something or not, I don't know. That is going to be more and more important in my prognostication. That I see it becoming more and more. I can give many examples, but there's a novel about Abu Laqi, for example. That became a movie. What's the name? Murdered? Very famous. I forgot. Abu Laqi, out of the blue, very important, maybe one of the most important artists in Hollywood, played on Abu Laqi. Gear. Gear.
Richard Gere?
What?
Richard Gere?
Yes, Richard Gere. Yes. For example, to give you an example. So I didn't see a movie on the Zohar. Maybe there are.
Not yet.
What?
Not yet.
Not yet, okay. But the movie on Abu Laqi is at least something 7-8 years old already. So slowly there is another balance, which you are still right now, but I don't know for how long.
Thank you so much, Professor Idel, for your lecture. I have a question. I am wondering about the noun. The noun, the name of the Zohar.
Yes.
Is it a construction to attract attention, or is a term that appears in some of the texts?
Very difficult to answer your question, despite the fact there are several important studies on what is the name Zohar, not the book. Idel wrote one, and more recently a student of mine, Abishai Barashero, about when the book was called Zohar for the first time. And surprisingly enough, he claims that was before the Zohar. Very early someone said that is the book of the Zohar. But we can say something of Moshe Leon, an early book of Moshe Leon, where as if he had a book named Zohar. That's a study which is rather recent, something 3 or 4 years. Now, Zohar is considered the source we know of the Bible. The Zohar itself. המשכילים יזכירו כזוהר הרקיע. The משכילים are the Kabbalists. So this is the proof text. But why do you take this give you an answer, but it's a little bit complex. First, that is positive. Splendor and light, and it's very nice. But beyond this very general observation, people believe that they can become luminous, can be transformed. Christians would say transfigurated in light. So that's a mystical story. So that's the book of how to be transfigurated, as the text we read. Or Enoch was transfigurated because he was a nice guy. So the idea was that is a transformative experience, which you return to the status of Idel, who was luminous. And that we have seen by chance the text, but there are many other texts in which transformation means to leave the darkness of the body and to go to the splendor of the soul. So that seems to me to be the reason why it's so important. The term is so important. But it's so obvious they took it from the book of Daniel.
More questions? Any other questions? What is happening to the Zohar before became the printed Zohar, after the Zohar in Spain before the expulsion? Do we have any mention to in literature too?
It was a big success at the beginning, which means maybe in the generation it was written, we have a translation in Hebrew. I had the honor to find this first translation in Hebrew, maybe 1300, maybe 1305. David Meir the Chassid. A translation, which is means a lot. In a short while, we have commentaries. Short while means 13, 10 commentaries. We have in this period people imitating the style of the Zohar, writing out of the blue with their names, writing in Aramaic. You know the name, they are saying the name, and they are simply imitating the Zohar. They are continuing to write as if we continue to write in Zoharic. That's someone named Joseph Angelet, who wrote a lot, still in manuscript, a lot, a huge commentary in manuscript. And he kept writing in Aramaic, also when he didn't write about the Zohar. So that is a huge success. That different Kabbalists imitated the style, translated, and we speak to quotes, they quoted a lot. However, there was a period of decline in the history of Kabbalah in Castile. But when you have the other Renaissance, which I didn't have time to speak about, before the expulsion from Spain, a huge literature was written apparently also in Castile, where the book of the Zohar is very important, and this book is dictated by God in Aramaic, following the Zoharic type. That was written, I assume, also in Castile around 1480 or something like that. So, for sure that the success was incredible. For sure that, a belief can make wonders. You believe that that is the book. So why shouldn't you imitate? Why shouldn't you translate? Why shouldn't you write a dictionary of the words in the Zohar, for example? So we have beginnings very shortly after the book was written. Afterwards, it was a decline, but it had nothing to do with the Zohar. It has to do with the cultural decline. But when the Kabbalah became again powerful, the Zohar is the base. And also in the case of Safed. So, let me say the people after the expulsion who went to Jerusalem, Kabbalists, didn't care about the Zohar. It's a very interesting dichotomy. Kabbalists going to Jerusalem have another Kabbalah, not related to Zohar. Not that they don't know, they don't care about Zohar. While people going to Safed are basing their Kabbalah on the book of the Zohar.
So when does it start, Safed?
Safed.
As a mystical center? Because you
That's never a
mentioned-
start, but we
No.
can speak about 1540 is already,
No, we know that, but before.
no, I say one before, but it was not a center. Before, Joseph Caro and the alphabets, but it was not a center. I think, what is for me a center? A center is when people are coming from abroad to study Kabbalah and stuff, that is a center. Because people studying Kabbalah, they did it everywhere. But people to come from Italy, and not one or two, to study Kabbalah in Safed is for me a symptom of a center. That started around 1540. They came a little bit earlier, but they came. Not so clear why they came, but they were not a center. But since 1540, they had their Cordovero, which is the most important Kabbalism. Started to create, it was very young. Someone said at the age of 40. Cordovero studied Kabbalah at the age of 16, 17, something like that. At the age of 44, he finished all the 30 volumes and died. Luria died at the age of 38. So apparently he didn't study enough Kabbalah. That is, how to put it, a popular assumption that you cannot study Kabbalah before, which no one expected. Let's say the most important Kabbalists, all of them, studied Kabbalah before 20. Ramchal, a very important Kabbalist, Luchad. He died at the age of 36. He wrote the whole literature, including Zoharic literature. And he died at the age of 36. I gave you more and more examples. Meaning, no one took seriously something like that. No one. Including Luria. So even today, I mean, if you go to Kabbalistic academies, young people, no one takes it seriously.
So they tell me that we have to finish.
Okay.
So just to thank you, but I would like to thank you very much for this. Y para los estudiantes, lo que os pediría es que os quedaréis aquí un momento porque vamos a hacer una fotografía. Pero bueno, pues, nos acabamos.